Good morning. Welcome to Exploring Economic Development with MEDC. My name is Meredith Harris. I'm joined by my co-host this morning, Jillian Roberts.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, I was a little disappointed that it was chillier than every other day this past week.
Well,
this morning.
April showers, spring, May flowers.
I'm trying to bring the spring vibes.
I like it.
It's a little chilly.
A little chilly.
But other than that, I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to bring the warmth this morning.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Episode
49.
49.
Yeah, episode 49. We've got to have a great guest for episode 50. I don't know what we're doing yet, but it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be so epic once we land on what our plan is. You guys, you don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss it.
You don't want to miss it. So if you're joining us live right now, we are streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and at WNCT TV, killing it over there.
And then Spotify later on, you could be listening
Exactly.
from, right?
You might just be listening and not seeing the whole visual effect. So if you're listening, feel free to check us out on our website, on YouTube.
We've got a lot of great content.
We do. So our last episode.
48. Episode 48, we had Ryan Gagne on to talk about Venture X and co-working space. I actually re-listened to that episode last night, just getting ready for the podcast this morning. We had such a cool conversation about the evolution of co-working spaces and pre-COVID, before people were talking about working from home and not working from home, and just really a cool episode. And to hear about him and how we work together to build the pipeline of companies coming in, really kind of a cool concept. So if you missed that episode, check it out.
Check it out. And if you're joining us live, basically we're talking all about exploring economic development here with the MEDC. We're really excited about today's guest, but we're going to try to keep our topic on the connections between economic development and the City of Marlborough and anything else that we might bring up. So you can go ahead and make comments, and if that works into our show, we'll
bring it in.
We'll bring it in.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have a very special guest today. We're very excited. Happy to have you here. But we'd like to welcome for episode 49, Mayor Christian Dumais.
Hello. It's good to be back here.
Welcome.
I know you want a special great guest for 50, but 49 is
49 is pretty good.
Yeah, just saying.
Just saying.
A little
This is your third time on the podcast.
It's my third time.
Which is awesome. I think we only have one other person that's been on 3 times. Oh, wow. No, 2 actually. Okay. So you're in a great club.
Great club.
You're in a great club.
Don't you usually get a jacket after so
You
many
do,
days?
actually.
Yeah, we'll be following up
with
that. Yeah,
maybe
we definitely will.
Maybe for 50, right? Yeah. But you originally joined us as a city councilor.
Correct.
To talk about your business downtown and what you were doing on the city council. Right. You joined us early last year. I think it was. I don't have the number episode off the top of my head.
42.
42. Okay.
I checked last
night.
Sweet 16, 42, and now 40.
Wonderful. Look at that.
I did my homework a little bit.
You did.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. So today we're going to talk about your not 18 months, 15 months that you've had in office, how things are going, what we can look forward to for the remainder of the year, things of that nature. So before we kind of jump into anything else, do you want to talk about how the last 15 months have gone, maybe the top 3 things that you think you've accomplished in those 15 months? Then maybe that'll get us kind of kicked off here.
Yeah, no, it's been a whirlwind of 15 months. So trying to go back to what did we accomplish?
Yeah.
The day-to-day is kind of grueling. So to try to think back, I enjoy the reflection, but sometimes
time flies when you're having fun, right?
Also that. Yeah. But I think that with this job, you don't have a lot of time to reflect or kind of celebrate those successes because you're always on to the next thing. So it's kind of nice, oh gosh, what did I do? So when you ask the question, you're like, oh, what did I do?
Well, we can't wait to hear.
So I mean, the first few months in office, we settled a huge lawsuit that was with Northborough. So
that was a big deal.
That was a huge win for the administration, and DPW was extremely involved. The interim, Ted Scott, was instrumental, and of course the legal team.
Sure.
Who are my godsend. Everything I check with legal. But just to have that open communication with Northborough and the town administrator at the time, just to open the floodgates and say, okay, let's really talk about this, because it was.
I was going to say, so for anybody that's watching that might not know anything about what we're talking about.
Sure.
So what was it?
Yeah, I'll dive into
on?
that. So so Northborough utilizes our sewer and wastewater treatment plant.
Fun stuff.
Yeah. Yes, it's very sexy.
Yes.
So there was a contractor intermunicipal agreement between the two Marlborough and Northborough, and they were not paying bills because the contract. So then there obviously was a legal battle of how much to pay, percentage and rate. They wanted one rate, and so we just didn't come to terms with the contract. They weren't paying, and so then obviously a lawsuit happened.
This went on years, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
It dates back to, I believe, 2014. The lawsuit was 2016.
Wow.
So we accumulated a lot of legal fees
Sure.
that were just accumulating. There was really no resolution. So when we stepped in, the town administrator of Northborough and I came to an agreement, like, how do we settle this? Let's get it out of the court system. Let's have an open dialogue and have that discussion. Things were a little fractured between the previous administration on both municipalities, so it was kind of nice to have a fresh pair of eyes. I think Mayor Vigent did everything he could to fight for the city of Marlborough.
Yeah.
We just couldn't come to an agreement.
Sure.
So I think we were racking up like $500,000 in legal fees, and there was no end in sight. And Northborough owed a considerable amount of money. So we were able to negotiate that and come to terms, consider a new rate, a new plan.
Okay.
So fees that were helping out to fix the treatment plant. So it was a win-win for everyone. And the city got about $8 million.
That's great.
It was a huge, and stepping into something like that, you don't know the backstory and the history and how much of a huge win. And I'm like, okay, you allow your team to be the team and to let them flourish. So like, I kind of took a step back. I'm like, Ted, do whatever you got to do. Let's figure this out. And Northborough had the same thought process. That the experts with DPW handle that and figure that out. Obviously, we brought on legal when the time was right.
Right.
But I think it was just to allow that process to happen organically.
Yep.
I think that's kind of what was needed.
Great.
And I'm forever grateful for the team.
So what happens now? So the city collects this payment of $8 million. Where does that go?
So it's in free cash right now.
Okay.
So we would need to figure out what to do with it.
Okay.
So,
I'm sure there's plenty of ideas.
There's a lot of ideas.
Sure. Sure.
And council has their own ideas, and I welcome that. So now with Brian Doheny, the new comptroller. So for those of you who don't know or following, so Brian actually worked for the city before he left. He was the town administrator for Ashburnham. We were able to recruit him back. He was instrumental with the AAA bond rating. He's a finance whiz. A lot of people know him, so it was great to bring him back. Council's excited. I'm excited. So now when we talk about capital improvement projects or AAA bond rating, it's added that extra security for the city, so we can actually figure out our investments and where to utilize the money that's best suited.
Awesome.
So it was a huge win.
Great.
So when you talk about this settlement, $8 million, what do you do? So now it's time to get all the powers that be to kind of sit down and like, okay, how do we invest this smart? And what's the best use of this money for the taxpayers? So
that's awesome.
Yeah, again, you don't realize how big of a win that was.
Sure.
When you kind of sit back because again, just a few months, I didn't even know it was happening until the transition. So I didn't being on a city council, you're not privy to pending lawsuits because there's a lot of things that are behind the scenes, which should be, it wasn't the role of the city council, but being transparent, like, hey, this is happening and we got it. So it was a huge relief for a lot of people. So that was a big win.
Yeah, but, I would say so.
Yeah,
for sure.
So,
all right, so that's number one.
Number one. So
drum roll, please. Drum one, what's number two?
We revised the website, which was pretty exciting. It was a huge
I think we have we're going to pull it up. Yeah.
It was a huge task, but just from behind the scenes, it was a huge security issue that we had to do a serious upgrade to that. So people ask, why do we need a new shiny website? The back end, it's for people that are utilizing the website to post things. And from a security standpoint, it was just completely outdated. Okay. So now it's fresh and clean and hopefully easier to manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clean. It's got a modern feel.
It kind of brings Marlborough to the 20th century, which is kind of what we needed. So I think when people are looking at Marlborough, they go to the website. Okay, what is the feel? What is
it's your first introduction?
What is it? Correct. And it kind of hangs out there. So kind of updating. I love the icons. Again, it's those little touches that are bringing it back to Marlborough. So that was a huge, huge adventure. It
takes a long time. Well, people sometimes don't realize how much time it takes to redo a website. And it's expensive too. Correct. It can be expensive.
And no one in the city owns that project. either,
Okay.
which makes it very difficult, and we tried to put down a communications director, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but that was the component of that.
Sure.
City council didn't feel that it was the right time, and I would agree with them, like I need to figure things out first before I start creating positions.
Sure.
So there was a lot of reflection with that. I
Yep.
don't think the timing was right, but to implement that, it would have been ideal to have that position just so someone owns it.
Sure.
Because it is a lot of work behind the scenes. I think people don't realize how much social media and website is a presence, especially now in today's,
Oh, absolutely.
especially when you want to communicate with the public. How do you do that? And this is a vehicle, so it's static, but it also can be changing. It's
And you're
evolving
controlling
and
the message, you're
and we're
controlling
correct.
the verbiage.
And
People know this is where I can go
correct.
to get
And
this
it's a branding.
information.
To your point, it's branding. Like, how do you brand the city?
Right.
I mean, economic development, you guys kill it with that. Just because when it comes to branding, you get it. And that's why people want to come to Marlborough, because there's that message. The city
Consistency.
the city doesn't have that. So I think that's kind of my frustration. Like, how do you brand Marlborough to make it the best it can be on the city side?
Yeah.
You get
We're
it.
trying.
You understand.
I know.
No, you do. But
Right.
But just because MEDC does it very well doesn't. The city should do it.
The city should do it as well. Right.
And work together for that.
Right.
So that's kind of where we're headed. So the website is a great start.
It's a great
for that.
tool.
So.
Well, so while we're talking about the website, I'm going to do a shameless plug for our developers communications page, which was a initiative that came out of our board of directors a couple years ago. I'm very happy that was kept. It came from the old website. You'll find it on the new website as well, but a great tool for people to be able to learn about the projects that are going on.
That had to stay.
Yeah.
I utilize that because, again, my memory is like a goldfish sometimes. There's a lot of moving pieces, so I forget how many apartment units are in that development or that project. So I still use that resource. And as a city councilor now, I'm like, just go to the website, go to that. You can get all the resources. You get pictures, you get plans. It's just a quick, easy
It's
way
easy.
to
It was such a good initiative that came out of it literally came from the board of directors. We were trying to combat some of the noise on some of the social media pages.
There's a lot of noise.
There is. And we were trying to find a way to get accurate information to the public. And so that's kind of how that whole page was developed. But I was very grateful that it moved over to the new website because I think it's a good tool.
And it makes sense because, again, I use it.
Yeah.
I do too.
So
if I do too. I'm a little biased and I have that power. So if I use it, then why would I get rid of it?
Right. Right.
And again, it's a great resource so people can navigate quickly.
Yeah. Quick information.
So, correct.
Right. And accurate information.
Accurate.
Which is half the battle.
Accurate.
Right.
There's a lot of inaccuracy.
All the time. Right. All right. Number three. We've got one. We've got two. What is number three?
So I just want to touch on this. So the dog park. So the dog park is built and we're doing final touches for the dog park. And this is where I kind of dropping the ball where I need to form a committee.
Okay.
So I'm working with legal to do that the best way possible. I have some names. So if you're interested in them being in the dog park committee, send my office an email. So I have to pick some names and get that.
So I know people are super excited about that.
They are.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit. Where is the dog park? How is it going to be utilized? What does it look like? It's over by
it's in Gagne Park. So if you drive by, it's kind of like the access entrance between Boston Post Road and Gagne. So it's over there. There's actually a trail right across the street. So it's a perfect fit for that.
Great.
So there's a area for small dogs, an area for large dogs. And then, so the committee will kind of form the rules and regulations. Okay. So we're working on that and what's the scope of the committee. So that's kind of what we're working on. So we're kind of held up with that and that's on me. So my apologies to the community. I'm ready to open it. You probably won't see me there. I'm allergic, but I'm allergic to dogs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, So again, I had
listening
and learning and giving what the people want.
This is valuable to you. Let's work together to make it happen. But you do need the committee to help.
Correct. But my whole agenda, and I'll say agenda for my administration is bringing that community. So dog parks can bring that sense of community. I may not be a part of that community, but there is a need. So why? Right.
So do you envision, so sometimes the naysayers of dog parks will say it's too much to maintain so will the committee kind of oversee a lot of those types of things?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the goal and the idea. So will be the charge of what the committee does. And that's where I have to check with legal and kind of figure that out.
Okay.
Dog parks are popping up in other communities. So we'll kind of figure out if we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Figure out what's working, what's not.
What doesn't work.
Sure.
So that's kind of the hold up. Because again, there's a lot of liability with dog parks, so I just want to make sure that
We're doing it correctly.
we're doing it correctly because
Yeah.
again, it's a new venture. So for
Mhm.
us, and the city doesn't want that liability, so we're just trying to figure out, and that's kind of the holdup. So it is coming, I promise. We spent some money and
Sure.
we want to be able to utilize it, not just
use it.
stare at it.
So basically, the
yeah.
ask to the community at this point is if you'd like to serve on the committee,
Sure, and we have some
reach
names
out.
already. So if you do, I have them already. But it's just a matter of
putting it together.
together and
Yep.
organizing that. So so we're just working on that.
So that's
it's
exciting,
one thing
something to
that-
look forward to.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And then with Dog Park, the Labor Day, I think that was a huge success
Okay.
with the festival.
Yep.
To bring back the festival.
It was a great
back.
day.
It really was.
It was.
It sounds cheesy, but like it filled my heart. Like honestly, like people were thanking me again. I don't need the kudos, but like just the fact that like people were nostalgia about bringing that back. You
Sure.
know? So for me, it was just like this is what this is about. You
Yeah.
know, to utilize Main Street, revitalize Main Street's been one of the goals and
Yeah.
the hot topics. So if we bring events down to Main Street, people will again fall in love with that Main Street feel
Sure. Yeah.
again. I know that like when the mall was built, there was concern about people not going to Main Street. They'll go to the mall.
Sure.
So now that the mall is in lieu of a lot of
Mhm.
different things, let's fall in love with Main Street again. Because
Yeah.
to me, it's such a beautiful Main Street. You know, I
We
can't
have a
tell
great
you.
downtown.
We do. DBW knocks it out of the park, keeping it
Every year.
clean, and it's
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I grew up downtown, so for me,
special.
it's completely special. You know, when I
Yeah.
look up Main Street, you see the flags or the banners, or
Yeah.
you know, with the city hall, the scaffolding will
Beautiful
come down.
flowers, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Once the scaffolding is off Main Street, which hopefully will be done sooner than
Is that
later.
happening soon?
Not a permanent fixture.
It seems like it now. No.
Yeah.
I was told this month.
Okay.
I don't want to say a date,
no
and then if it doesn't
promises.
happen,
Right, right,
so
right.
it keeps getting. So
Fair
we just had crazy wind and all that stuff. So we're waiting on the glass. So we're fixing the clock tower
Great.
and the actual clock. So we had to ship out the clock.
Okay.
And now it had to come back, and now we have to put it back up.
There's a lot that goes into that, and I know
There
that the facilities team and the DPW, I mean, they're working all the
They do.
time on trying to make sure that those projects get done
Right.
correctly,
Right.
yeah, and safe and all that kind of
Well,
good stuff.
I mean, it's such an icon.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
It's such a beautiful
is.
building, you know. But so those were probably the top that I can
Top three.
top three.
All right, so now
in
we're
my
gonna make you.
opinion. So
Well, we're gonna
Yeah.
make you come up with another three, right? So that's
not?
looking back. What's the top three things you've accomplished? Let's look forward a little bit. So
Okay.
what are you still working on? What are the top three things going into the rest of this year that you'd like to accomplish or that you'd like to make some progress on?
dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll be probably tarred and feathered if I don't mention the fire station.
The fire
So
station.
the fire station is on the list, and this has been a difficult challenge. So
It's not an easy project.
It's not.
No.
You know, there's never enough land. So to try to find the right parcel of land, and and part of me is not necessarily dragging my feet, but again, to your point earlier, we have to do this right.
Yep.
You know, like
It's a big investment.
it's a huge investment, but also with the development that could be happening
Mhm.
in the west side, we
Mhm.
have to make sure that this is the right parcel of land. So I've been vetting parcels of land. The committee has been chomping at the bit to get this going, and
Yeah.
and I'm working on it. But there's a lot of moving pieces, you
Sure.
know. So I have to do it right. So I am vetting a parcel of land. So it is coming. So I
Okay.
just need to pull the trigger and send it down to council, and then we'll see how that works. So
Okay.
I know the council is extremely supportive. They're ready for it. I'm
Yeah,
ready
the
for it,
community's
but-
ready for it.
So when you stop and think about the fire station, we still have Pleasant Street, and
Yeah.
that was in 1902. It
Yep.
was built.
Wow.
We're still using that.
Yeah, so your
so
point
if
is
you
it's going to
stop
be a
and
lot
think about
around
it-
a long time.
Correct. So that's the thought process. So when you stop, like, oh, we have to build for 50 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of like, but Pleasant Street's 120. So like
Yeah.
that's
It's
the
a big
concern. So when
decision.
you stop and think and put it in that perspective, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it. So for me to make a decision for the next 100 years, like
Yeah, it's not a light decision.
it's not. And especially when now there's no funding from the state or federal, like
Yep.
this will come directly out of taxpayers' pocket.
Yep.
So I owe it to them to make sure that it's the right decision.
Sure.
And not just do it just because I
It's not
did
just
it.
rushed.
You know, right.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
cause, like I can just pick a parcel and we can go after it. But what does that serve the community?
Mhm.
For me, it doesn't. And
Mhm.
I need to be able to sleep at night. And that's probably a little selfish on my part, but I owe it to the residents that, hey, I am the mayor here and I need to make sound decisions for the residents. So it's something I take very seriously.
Sure.
So,
So the good news is you have a committee that's together that
committee,
is
yep.
helping to guide the decision.
yep. And they've been
Um,
advocating for different parcels of land. So we're vetting those parcels. And so now it's just the further vetting and
Yep.
and then just, again, pulling
Making
that
a
trigger
decision.
and just doing it. And,
Sure.
You know, and once you vet that, you have to kind of see where the chips fall, you
Yeah.
know, and say, okay, whether we do eminent domain or other vehicles,
Yep.
something has to happen. And then once that decision is made, commit to that decision
Yep.
because it could be a longer road depending on the outcome of that parcel of land that
Right.
we actually choose. So
People
it's,
can get excited that we're working on it. There should be some
Absolutely-
stuff to come
absolutely,
in the
you
next
know,
couple of months.
yeah, and you know, you want to do updates, but you know, like I don't want to keep advocating, oh well, we tried out that parcel and it didn't work, we tried that parcel and it
Sure.
didn't work. Like, you know, sometimes you, as transparent as you want to be, sometimes it
Can do
doesn't
more
serve
harm.
the purpose, you know. So that's why we're kind of holding it close to our chest. So like,
Sure.
when we do make that decision, this is it. You know that I'm telling you that we vetted every possibility.
Yep.
And this is the best
This
decision
is the best one.
for right now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
we
kinda
look forward
it.
to that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Trust me. Not that I want to get it off my plate, but
Yeah. It's
I
important.
want
for-
correct.
Even
This
as
has
a
been like
city
a
councilor.
this has been like
Yeah.
a 30-year project. This is long before.
Yeah.
You know, like I think
It's important for the future development. I mean, this is an economic development podcast. I mean, it's
Right.
important to be able to attract new growth, that the infrastructure is in place, and
Right.
that the
Well, and
city is covered.
especially because when we're talking economic growth, there's been a lot of growth, which
Yeah.
is great. But our public service and public safety needs
Yeah.
to also increase as well. You know,
Sure.
so we have the best equipment
Yep.
and the best space for our public safety. You know?
Yep.
So there's that comes into play too.
For
So,
sure.
like, I don't want to just find a parcel that's 2 acres and we
Yep.
makeshift something. Then what does that serve? It doesn't
Yep.
serve our firefighters, our team, and the
In our community.
You know, so I appreciate the patience, but I am working actively on it. It's something that needs to happen. It was during my inauguration speech. Like,
Yep.
I'm well aware that pressure is kind of mounting, but we're committed to the cause.
Perfect.
So,
That's
Yeah.
That's all we can ask for,
yeah,
right?
That's
Right.
it.
So that's number one.
number one.
What's number two?
Richer School.
Richer School.
Building another building.
Okay.
So we are through the process with Richer School. So we are in the feasibility study.
Mm-hmm.
So we are through the MSBA program. So
So what's the problem for anybody that doesn't know? Richer School's too small. We're busting at the seams.
we
What's
are
going on over
busting
there?
at the seam at the elementary school level. Even
Okay.
with Goodnow Brothers being built, we are still busting at the seams. So
Crazy, huh?
it is crazy. Again, when you talk about that new growth, you
Right.
know, it's pretty great problem to have, I guess.
Yeah.
But so when Goodnow Brothers was built, we probably needed about 5 extra classrooms. That MSBA did not think that was a great assessment. So
Wow.
yeah, so now we're back at the table and having to build another school. So
And that's back
are-
at the table with them, correct?
through the MSBA.
MSBA?
Yep. So
Yep.
we're through the process with MSBA. So MSBA is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So they allocate funds. So we don't have to pay for the whole project, which
Yep.
is great. So there's a percentage. It's about 70% or so. Don't quote me
And-
on the exact. So
And
that'll
that's
come back to
MSBA is Massachusetts School Building Authority, correct?
Correct. Yep. So we are we have an OPM, which is the owner's project manager. So we have that. So they kind of guide us through the process.
Yep.
And then we just have a designer as well for
Okay.
the project. So now the next step's again finding land.
Yeah.
That's another
Fun.
problem. And based upon that land, so do we either remodel Richer School
Yep.
at Richer School, or do we build a new building? So that's kind
That's
of
the
where
big
we're
question.
at. So
Mhm.
I think we kind of have an idea.
Mhm.
So if we to do Richer School over, where are we going to put those students?
Sure.
It's just not feasible.
Yeah.
So, but we're going to explore all that. So,
Okay.
but if we do build another building or school, we have to figure out where.
So who's
So-
on that type of a committee? Is that school committee or
So
is
there's
that
school
a different?
committee members. There's people of the public.
Okay.
DPW superintendent,
Yep.
myself, Councilor Roby is
Okay.
on it as well. So there's a good plethora of
Great.
people. A lot of people that were from Goodnow Brothers are on it as
Mhm.
well. So they have that institutional knowledge, and so we already looked at locations
Yeah.
for elementary school.
I know there's
as
not
well,
there's
so
not a lot of available land either. So that's
Correct.
the hard part.
that is the hard part. So I guess it's it's a good problem to have. Marlborough's a building, but
Yeah.
when we need land for services, it's kind of a tough
Well,
gig.
and you have to kind of juggle the, keeping open space and recreation space.
Correct.
And, so it's a puzzle, right? You got to put the pieces together
Correct.
and make it work. Yeah.
And so it makes sense as
Right,
well,
right.
We can't put a school on the east side because we're dealing with the west side,
Right.
So there's all those factors.
All
So
those
just because
factors.
it limits everything, so to the 495
Sure.
side. So we're actively looking at that as well. So
All right,
that's
number
fun.
3.
Number 3. So right now I'm in budget season. So
That
I'm
doesn't
working on
sound
that.
fun.
It has its components. I think with the new fiscal year, it kind of re-energizes for new projects
Sure.
and stuff like that. So we're working on the budget and capital improvement projects and coming up with a plan for road work.
Okay.
Road work is a very, very hot topic throughout.
Well, it's
the
needed
city,
too,
so-
right? I mean, it's needed. People always want road repairs, but then they're always angry when the road repairs are taking place, right?
Right. So we're coming up with a plan, and we're sitting down with DPW and kind
Okay.
of figure out what roads need to get done. Reach out to City Council, what roads do they want to see done. So that's it's more of a short term,
Sure.
but it's obviously can be designed for the longer term
Yep.
regarding a road plan. Because there's a lot of things that are at play with water, sewer, gas.
Yeah.
Lines, so there's a lot of that. So
Sure.
coordinating with Eversource and National Grid and all that to make sure that what are the projects are you working on? So if we don't tear up a road to fix it, and then
Right.
we have to tear it up again because
Right.
of a gas or
not
water
good.
leak. So it's a lot of infrastructure that has to go in beforehand.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people kind of forget that, like, just
Yeah.
fix my roads. I'm like, well,
There's a lot
you're
more to it.
slated to do the gas line in a year, so we're not going to do it. And then
Right.
I think people forget that there's a lot of things underneath
Sure.
the road that,
Yeah.
needs
That
to
make it
get
all
fixed. That make
Yeah.
so we don't have to keep again, and that was a huge concern during the campaign. That was a million years ago, that like, hey, why do we fix the roads and then
Rip them
rip
up.
them up again? I'm like, that's a valid question. So we're just trying to streamline that. So
Sure.
National Grid was in my office recently, and so we're coming up with like, okay, what projects we need to be more in sync, more on the lines of like, okay, what's getting done so we can do what we need to do
Right.
to start fixing these roads. So
City's in a pretty healthy place in terms of cash and things
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, though. So
Yeah,
that must be nice to know going into budget season, right?
it is not so great for union negotiations.
Okay.
But yeah, dealing with other mayors and talking to them, like, we do not have a lot of the financial restrictions that other communities have. When you especially smaller towns or smaller cities,
Mhm.
we have the economic growth, which is why it's so important to
Mhm.
cultivate MEDC and to bring in the new growth.
Yep.
Because a lot of communities don't have that, and
Sure.
they're struggling with overrides and huge tax increases. So,
Yeah, our friends over in Hudson, we won't go there, but yeah, they're
Right.
dealing with that right now.
You're right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate to be in this position.
Mhm.
So I don't take that lightly either.
Yeah.
Like Mayor Vichin and his administration did an incredible job. Trying to keep everything under control in the
Mm-hmm.
council before. And that's huge for Marlborough.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how. The mayor's meeting that I was just at, we were talking about trash. We were talking about budget and restrictions, and trash is going up and across the board. And now there's a lot of fees that are being in place for other communities, and I kind of shrink because we don't offer.
We don't have that.
I don't want to well, we don't charge.
It's one of the
we
things I miss
don't.
about being Marlborough resident. It's small, but it affects me every single week. It's a pain point for me not living in this community and not being able to take advantage of some of those things.
And I don't
Well,
want
you're always welcome back.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, just come on.
I can come back.
You go- And I don't think it's a sense of entitlement, but I think people forget that. Like,
Sure.
we're just so accustomed to a lot of the perks.
Yeah.
That like I just like when
But there's a science behind it, right?
there is,
There is.
but like, especially when you have it for so long, then
Yeah.
you're just accustomed to that, which is great. You don't get me
Sure.
wrong, but when you hear other communities that are having these fees that are pretty high,
Wild.
on addition to taxes
Sure.
going up, it's just they're talking about actual trash bag size.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
other
we
mayors
do
are going
trash
into like, well,
stickers in my
what is your
town.
what is
Yeah.
your basket size? What is your trash barrel size? And I'm like,
And how much does your trash weigh? Like, we have weight limits and
which is insane to me. Like, things that I like, I don't have to think
So
of
this
any
is
of that.
actually a great segue into my next question for you, which was going to be, economic development, right? So we're
Sure.
talking about growth and the need for new growth and how that impacts your residents and different things. What have you, so now that you're mayor, right? What have your viewpoints on economic development changed at all, or the need for development, or those types of things from when you were a counselor to now when you're sitting in this role?
Completely. Like, I think, I mean, as a counselor, you had like basic understanding, but like now when you're actually talking to department heads and what they're asking for and what you have to cut, you know, like it's a whole different element of like, oh, we need this growth so we can provide these services or continue to pay for these services, you know, like, you know, especially during budget season. So the economic growth is incredibly important, you know.
When we talk a lot too about like the pipeline of growth, like a lot of the, so I know one of the criticisms in the community right now is that there's a lot of projects happening.
Correct.
There's a lot of construction and that's fair. I mean, you drive around the city,
course.
there's a lot going on.
But Meredith,
But a lot of those projects were approved.
And I was just gonna say, we
years
approved them in
ago.
like 2019.
Yeah,
20,
so
you
it's
know, like
important. We talked
that's-
to President Ossing about this a lot too, about continuing to keep things in the
Correct.
pipeline and make sure that we're thinking about new growth for the future
Right.
of the city as well.
And that came up yesterday, you know, again, I met with all the department heads yesterday regarding their budget and, you know, talking to individuals and talking about that new growth, because if things aren't
In the
site
pipeline.
plan, there's obviously some things but when it comes to city council, that's usually bigger projects,
Yeah.
you know? So when you're talking about money coming in and revenue coming in regarding building permits and all that, like if there's no projects coming in, then there's no building permits and there's no inspections.
Fees.
That revenue is being lost, you know? And I think people kind of forget.
Well, I don't
how
think they
much-
understand how it works too. Right. That's our job here, is to explore economic development.
Right. But
Right.
it is something that they probably don't need to know either, you
Sure.
know, like, yeah, it'd be great if they did, but like, oh, okay, this is someone else's problem, they'll handle it, you know. But that's why there's a lot of great people in
That
the
is
room
our problem. We are trying to handle it.
right, you know. So I wish and hope that people will step back and realize, like, okay, these projects are needed. Granted, like,
Well, and the other thing, not all of them always go to fruition either, right?
Correct,
So you can
correct.
approve something, that doesn't mean that it's going to get built either.
Yep.
So there's always that
Right.
aspect of it as well, that sometimes the market could turn or develop, you know, something could happen where the developer doesn't decide
Right.
to move forward. And then, you know, you're
Right.
back to square one on a site or something like that.
or the project can start and not finish. I
Right.
mean, again, regardless of
anything
your
can happen.
political beliefs, because we're not talking about that, but like, it's concerning regarding economic development or any development, because with tariffs and things being cut left and right from the federal level affects the state level and
For
affects
sure.
the local level. So I'm very concerned about that. You know,
Yeah.
when you're hearing all these cuts, it's like, what does that do not only for our residents, and is there a recession going to happen?
Yeah.
You know, because again, things are okay now, you know, we have the free cash, but I don't want to tap into
Sure.
our rainy day fund just because it was happening nationally. And
Right.
for me, that's a concern. So now when you have projects that are being built and now with cost on the rise, are they going to be able to afford not only the labor, but also the materials?
Sure.
And again, that's something that people don't think about, you know,
Right.
because when you budget for
So
a project
multifaceted.
from 2019,
Right.
when things were approved, and now economically things are not so great, how do you factor that in?
Sure.
You know, because the last thing I want is a half completed project, whether it's
right.
downtown
Or anywhere else.
or anywhere else, you know. So those are the things that we have to be mindful
For
for
sure.
when you're talking economic, and that's
Right.
very nerve-wracking. You know, I think we're all concerned about that.
So can we get happy? Let's get happy.
Absolutely. I'm always happy.
All right, we're gonna get. So let's talk about two very, very big economic development wins that we've been able to celebrate in the last 15 months. So the first one I want to talk about a little bit is Cytiva.
Yes.
So that was a really great project that we were able to work on last year. But Cytiva over on Forest Street, growing company. They were formerly, for anybody watching, formerly the GE Healthcare space. They'd moved in 2014.
Yep.
They then name changed. There were some acquisitions that went on. So now it's Cytiva. But they moved into what was previously the Whole Food space in between Cytiva and Quest Diagnostics. We had 50,000 square feet there that was vacated. They decided to move into that space. They did a huge investment over there, bringing in jobs. What are your
Right.
thoughts on that? I know we did a TIF with the city council. Thank you for your support on that. But what
Sure.
another great story of growth here in
Correct.
the city.
Again, when you start looking at all these companies that want to come to Marlborough, it's exciting for me, as someone who grew up in Marlborough and it continues to put Marlborough on the map,
Yeah.
and if we can help and support that business because they see the value in Marlborough,
Right.
I mean, we see it, I see it, you see it,
Right,
like,
right,
we
right.
drink the Kool-Aid every day of how great Marlborough is. So to be able to showcase that, and I believe they're having like a travel and tourism part where like, right? Isn't like
Yeah, so
an
they-
incredible amount of people are becoming to Marlborough?
Well, I think that was the really
So,
unique part about
correct.
this one. Millions of dollars that they're investing into the space, and then they're creating. It's a training center.
Correct.
So, not to get too much into the weeds, but Cytiva is also the parent company is Danaher, and
Yeah.
so Danaher has all these other companies that are underneath their umbrella. But so they're using this space as kind of the hub for their
Right.
training, which we're expecting to see about 5,000 visitors
Right.
annually that will come to this training space,
Right.
stay in our hotels, eat in our
Correct.
restaurants, things
That's
like
phenomenal.
that. Oh, it's a great
Right.
The location is
expansion,
Perfect.
and really
Right.
we loved Whole Foods. I
Sure.
loved having their corporate it was the Northeast headquarters there. But they were, post COVID, they struggled to come back into the office. We weren't seeing as many people
Right.
in that space. So I think we're really excited to see reactivation of the space,
Right.
and people coming in. So there's also 108 jobs that are associated with the project, with the
Right.
investment that they're doing there. So that's awesome. We're getting more people to come into the community, more jobs here, and all of those visitors will be huge.
Right.
Yeah,
Which it sets a whole different tone.
absolutely.
They're not just another business; they're actually bringing people to Marlborough. To your point, that will be eating at our restaurants and our hotels, which is the meals tax, the hotels tax,
Right.
which is,
That's the whole
funds
point.
so many other things, which is
Right.
less of a burden for the taxpayers at
Right.
the end of the day. Which again, something that we have to think of.
Right, right.
Again, something
Big
the
fish
residents
feed
don't.
the small fish, right? That's our
So-
mantra.
So that was extremely exciting. I thank you, Meredith, and MEDC for kind of spearheading that. And,
We love it.
which is great. I mean, I think Marlborough, we know tips, we know how to do them
Mhm.
well, and I think other communities are envious of that.
Sure.
And I think that's why we have the business that we do, because you get it.
Well, it's
Willing to make it
it's a
work.
great tool, and I would be remiss to not mention thank you to the city council
Correct.
for
Oh, absolutely.
being willing
Absolutely.
to approve these TIFs.
Sure.
And
Right.
we could go over TIFs. I'm not going to go down that
No,
path.
I
We
think we killed
do
it.
that, but for anybody that's
Right.
watching, we have a lot of episodes. One in particular that stands out is one with President Ossing, where we
Right.
actually dive into TIFs and the benefits
Sure.
of them,
Right.
and how they don't really impact
Right.
the community
Yeah.
as much
And-
as people might think when you
Right.
first think about it.
Sure.
And
I
so
think- I
check
think-
that out if you're curious.
Yeah, I want to thank President Ossing because I think he.
Who is
to-
here in the chat, by the
Oh,
way?
hello,
Ah.
Good morning
hello,
to
Mr.
us all.
President.
Good morning.
But again, he kind of spearheaded the knowledge of
Sure.
how beneficial the tip
Exactly.
is to the newer counselors, and so they
Right.
have a better understanding of that, and that's huge.
And how the city
implemental.
doesn't lose.
Correct.
Right.
And I think that's a huge misconception that
Yeah.
the city
100%.
loses, and I'm like, that's not true. Like,
Well, and even when again, we're going down a path.
We
I
are,
don't want
we
to do
are.
this,
We-
but
yeah,
even
so-
when a project doesn't work out, the city still doesn't
Correct.
lose. And
Correct.
so there is a ton of pieces. Maybe we can follow up with a short, just as an aside to this episode too. But that was a great win. So that was really a fun
it
one.
was.
The next
was.
one I want to talk about, which we're really excited. There hasn't been a lot of press about this quite yet, but
Well, a little
we're
bit, but not so
we're going to
great.
spearhead the press on this
We-
one. But we did announce in the city happenings this week that Marlborough was selected for the state crime lab,
yeah, which is huge.
which is great.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to thank your office for that. There was a lot of work behind the scenes for that, and even Greatland, the developers, which was huge. And from the mayor's perspective, what's different is being able to talk to the lieutenant governor and be like, hey, what's going on with this
Yeah.
project? I never would have thought in a million years growing up that I'd be able to talk to the lieutenant governor and have really just call her. I'm like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
So that is completely different from being city
A counselor. Sure.
to, it puts things in perspective of how quote unquote powerful this position is.
Or how
and-
things get done,
and how
right?
things get done, right? And
Right.
again, a few phone calls into her. I'm like, hey, what's the update? And that was pretty
They made us
exciting.
wait a
So
long time,
They
though.
did, yeah, they did.
They
Oh,
did.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
can Meredith, you want to
Yep.
just kind of explain to our residents if they're looking at a picture of the campus here?
They're
in
saying, what are
Marlborough,
you talking about?
crime lab?
Yes.
Tell us more.
Yeah. So, okay. So the campus, so probably I would say 2 years ago, the state put out, so DCAM, which is the Division of Capital Asset Management at the state, put out an RFP looking for land to build a new state crime lab. So the requirement went out. People all over this region were able to submit bids to be the home of the next crime lab. There was a very competitive process. A lot of people put in bids. We had one developer here in Marlborough that had the space to do it and put in a really good bid. So that was Great Land, which is the owners of the campus. So that's why you're seeing the campus space up there.
Right.
Anybody that's not familiar, that's the old 3Com space. Hologic is up there currently.
BJ's.
BJ's, thank you. A couple of other Akoyo Biosciences, thank you.
Got it.
I was thinking of Acurono, the
Correct.
exchange.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you've been
Yes.
to the junior women's trunk or treat, it's there.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There you
To
go.
kind of put things in
That's where
perspective.
people should know. That's
yeah,
right.
trunk or
That's what
treat.
people know.
That's-
The trunk or treat.
yeah.
But so that the campus up there, which is permitted for additional growth on the site. It's a really big site up there, really beautiful site. They've got amazing views of kind of the mountains, and
Right.
it's very It's beautiful. So, anyways, long story short, we worked very closely with Great Land, with the mayor's office. To talk about how we could try to make Marlborough attractive to the state to put this building here. And luckily enough, we were selected. They sat through our presentation. There was a really great pitch made.
Correct.
State Representative Danielle
Danielle Gregoire was
Gregoire
there, yeah. So
came to the pitch as well over at
kudos
the
to her.
campus.
And I think that's what's so special about Marlborough. So obviously Danielle and I both graduated from Marlborough High.
Yeah.
She's a year ahead of me. Wink, wink. You're a little older, Danielle, so if you're listening. So there's that. So the beautiful thing about what I got to do and what Danielle got to was we got to just talk how great Marlborough is. So like it wasn't a heavy lift for
Sure.
her and I. So for me just to be able to walk in and showcase the city and tell all the wonderful things and why Marlborough,
Yeah.
it becomes very easy to
Sure.
the state rep and I. So for me, it was like, okay, like,
They should pick us.
well,
Yeah.
it's kind of insulting that why do we have to go through this process? And I understand there's a
Choice is
process.
obvious.
Yeah.
Right. For us, it is, but able just to showcase all the wonderful things that Marlborough has to offer.
Absolutely.
Like even from not just like an economic, but like that whole live, work, play that
Absolutely.
you showcase so much. Like it was an easy pitch.
Well, and I think that when we're doing these pitches, and so I think that was probably the first one that you and I had done
Correct.
together, where we actually
Right.
go in and make this pitch to the company.
Right.
And it's not about taxes and those
Right.
things play a factor.
Right.
But for this project in particular, I don't think I've even said it yet, but 200,000 new building, 200,000 square feet of a new build. So that's the new growth that we've been talking about
Sure.
right there. And people are probably going to be confused. It is the state of Massachusetts, but the developer will actually be owning the building,
Correct.
which means Marlborough will still collect the taxes on the site.
Yep.
But this project brings in between 400 and 450 jobs to the city. Again, big fish feed the small fish. So those 450 people that are going to be coming in, and before people get crazy about traffic, it's over in the west side of the city
Correct.
on the other side of 495. We've got that 23C. So you really won't see an impact in terms of traffic
Right.
over here on this side of the city.
Right.
But a great project. And again, back to the pitch, where it was probably unique for you to be able to see
Sure.
kind of that war room of what goes into it. But
Right.
the more we talk to companies, the more we have learned and recognized that it's about the whole picture.
Right.
And, they're not just looking for the place that's going to be the cheapest to build or something
Right.
like that. It's about the whole
Correct.
thing.
Well, I think I'm tooting my own horn a little bit. I think what I've been, again, only being in the service industry, like you want people to come back. So like you have to bring that warmth or that heart, and not to say that I do that well, but that is kind of like my wheel,
It's the storytelling. It's
it's
the connecting.
it's
to
making
real
those
people.
connections and like sharing and like that small little chit chat, like, hey, how are you? How are things? And try to be personal. And I
Top
think
of mind, tip of tongue.
Right.
right. And I think that's what Marlborough does so well, because we have this beautiful heart and it's organic and it's real. There's a lot of blue collar energy but at the heart, but also we have all these transplants
Amazing.
that make it a full circle of what Marlborough brings. Marlborough's not the same that I grew up with, but that heart is still there. That sense of pride is still there. So to be able to bring that, I'm like, okay, like
I think
all right,
it was the Bad Boys theme song that was played during the pitch, though, that really won it.
It was.
So as much as we,
Why was I not there? For
it
this?
was hilarious.
It was epic. It was epic. Yeah.
It was very good, and,
Right.
and it kind of broke the ice a little bit. Everybody started laughing. And-
That's cool.
I think it's just brought people at ease.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's what Marlborough is. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like,
Bring some personality and
right,
pride.
right.
So that's a really exciting project
Right.
that we're looking forward to
And I think would be-
helping see that through. It's not a done deal yet. We were
Correct.
selected
Right.
as the site, but there are still a
Right.
few things we need to do
Yep.
to lock it in and make sure
Right.
that
And
happens. But
right down the street is a new police academy as well, I think.
correct,
So when it comes to public safety, there'll be a lot more
this is the place to go.
police presence, which is great. So,
Right.
um,
All right, so believe it or not, we're bumping up against time.
we always bump up.
We're
on
always
time.
bumping up against time. There are at least one other big project I want to talk about. We won't keep you too much longer, but there's a big proposed expansion at the hospital.
Yes.
Which is a huge deal. Can you give us kind of high level? Are you supporting this expansion?
Absolutely.
And why?
I mean,
Why not, right?
Yeah, we're bumping up on time, so I don't think there's a why not. Yeah, I think with the healthcare industry and the way that it is now, with hospitals closing,
Sure.
to have Marlborough expand, like that's unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, and to have better quality care and
Right.
healthcare right in our backyard, like
It's
I
incredible.
don't understand why people would not want to support that. You know,
Yeah.
like, that's what I don't understand. But I mean, if I don't want to hear if you don't support it, because I like I don't need the negativity. But I don't understand from a standpoint of better healthcare why someone would not want that for the quality of life for our residents, but also the economic impact. You know, when we're talking economic, you know, because the proton beam that is being proposed would be huge for Marlborough. Again,
Right.
put Marlborough on the map, but also when you need to stay at a hotel with families that are coming and traveling from far away
Sure.
over New England, you know, that helps out the hotel industries and our restaurants and
Right.
things of that nature. Apex, you know,
Yeah.
things to do. The trails, like there's a
Again, that
lot
whole thing.
the whole
The whole picture.
live work life type of live work play mentality, you know. So it's great for the city overall.
I agree.
Like, you know, like again,
I agree. And when you look at the whole project, right? I mean, so for anybody that's watching that might not know what we're talking about, again,
Right.
you can look it up. There are some articles that are out there, but basically, long story short, the hospital is looking to invest in the long run $200 million into their site on Union Street and expand the emergency department.
Yep.
They also want to add some newer equipment. They want to add a CAT scan machine, a multidisciplinary clinic on top of the emergency department. But then the bigger piece that is really kind of spurring a lot of the conversation is this proton therapy, which is a very specialized cancer treatment that there's very few in New England. There's actually only 2 in Massachusetts. One is actually coming offline. And so UMass Memorial is in line to add that therapy right here in Central Mass.
That's amazing.
Which would be huge not only for Marlborough, but for the region.
Yeah, that's right.
And as the mayor stated, you know, people that previously were traveling to Rhode Island or Connecticut to get this therapy and staying there, or trying to travel into Boston to access this type of care and would have to stay in a hotel in Boston for weeks on end or whatever it is. They're really trying to break down some of those barriers and create additional access to this type of therapy and care, which is huge.
Yeah.
So there's a big process behind it.
There is.
There's different things from a regulatory standpoint with the state. Some things that are going on behind the scenes between UMass Memorial and UMass Memorial Marlborough Hospital. There's some stuff going on there administratively. They will be coming before the city council for a special permit at a certain point. So there's a lot going on, but it's a really exciting project that I think we should all
potential of
be
that.
following.
Sure.
Yeah,
And I think just as a community, we all need to stand behind
Yeah.
Marlborough Hospital. I mean, it dates back, 100 years, you know, on that site or something.
I think it's 135,
Maybe,
I think is what they were saying. My City Happenings script is popping into my head.
Well,
But they
even
just celebrated a birthday.
With the addition of the women's center that they
Yeah.
had, I mean,
Correct.
that's amazing. I
Right.
That's where I go every year, and I'm proud to go there.
Throwback. We did an Inside the Industry with
did.
the hospital probably 2 years ago at this point.
Right. Yeah.
But that was another
Wow.
great episode.
Yeah.
I'll have to link that one as well.
Right.
But the growth there is just unbelievable. I mean, just the convenience. So I see some doctors out in Boston, and I'm not that far from Boston.
But it
Right.
takes a long
the
time.
commute, and then I'm like, all right, if I set my appointment for this time, I got to take the whole day off because then I'm going to get stuck on
Right.
the traffic
Right.
coming back. And
For a 45-minute
Right, and if
checkup,
you're
like
going
you're
through-
spending.
health issues, the
Right.
last thing you want to do is
Correct.
being worried about all that traveling. I can't imagine being out of state,
Right.
Yeah.
having to go into like the city
Right.
and then figure out transportation and the
Right.
costs, all these extra costs just to see
Right.
the type of the quality of care that you deserve, that everyone
Right.
deserves. So
Well, and especially-
expanding is a huge
Huge. And especially when you see, I think people don't realize the importance of a community hospital until it's gone, right? So you look
Oh,
at what's going on around the state in
right.
the past
I
year or
can't
so.
imagine not having
Absolutely.
Marlborough Hospital.
Right.
Like I can't like that thought would never even cross my mind. Like what? Like no.
Well, but
It's
but
been-
it can happen, right? And
Yeah.
so that's
Well,
the part where we're so lucky
right,
that
but I
they're
can't
choosing
even
to invest
fathom
here.
Right.
you know, like I wasn't fortunate enough to be born in Marlborough Hospital. My mom was.
I know a few who
like,
have.
I know Mayor
Right,
Richard.
Who
Mayor
was.
Vision right. Yeah, I'm not at
It's
that.
so funny. I think somebody said recently, one of our board members, his son was the last one to be born at Marlborough Hospital, but they left out the fact that it was like in the emergency room.
Correct.
Like,
Hey, that's
like,
that still counts.
yeah,
That's
not
still
not in a
counts.
maternity ward, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways,
But-
okay, I do want to let you go shortly because we
Sure.
are trying to be respectful of your time. But before we go, what are the exciting things we can look forward to? I know we talked about your top 3 priorities,
Sure.
but what are some of the fun things?
Fun
We've got a
things.
really cool floating boardwalk
We
that might be
do.
opening soon, a
Yes,
new
I would-
restaurant downtown. What are some of the things people can be excited about?
If I could clear the air about the boardwalk,
boardwalk?
a little
Sure.
bit.
Please
There was
do.
an article in the Community Advocate that was completely inaccurate. You know?
Okay.
So the repairs are not delaying the project.
Okay.
There's nothing to that sort of that. We opened in May last
year.
year, so we are ahead of schedule, if anything, and we're not delayed.
Okay,
The-
good to know.
The boardwalk is designed to move. That's
Sure.
the whole concept. So if you see the railings, it's designed to do that.
So nothing's wrong over
Nothing's wrong with
Okay.
it. You will see people out there to make sure that it's safe and secure.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with like it's broken. There's no more added tax dollars that have to go into it. It's under warranty for an incredible amount of years.
there. Okay,
Like,
okay, good to
you
know.
So we're
Anne Marie
good
from the
with
residence
that.
page is saying exactly.
Exactly. So for all the I
You
follow
heard it here.
I follow the residence pages, you know, and
You
I,
shouldn't do that. No.
I scan it, you know, I don't,
I
you know, but I don't understand the, you know, I think I'm referred to as Mayor Water Walk, which is kind of cool name. So I kind of taken that because again, I promoted that when it first opened.
That's a
And
great
thanks-
asset in the
Thank
community.
you to Mayor Vision for that and the councilors at the time and Councilor Landers who
I
will
know.
be missed in that legacy of him and in that boardwalk. But I can't tell you how many restaurants are so thankful for
Oh, the
that boardwalk.
fix in particular.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's now a destination where people want to come again, bringing more people
From
to
all
Marlborough,
around
from
the
all
Commonwealth.
over,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
And of course, it's the first year that it opened. There was some hiccups with parking and all that stuff.
But
We're
we're
actively
working it out.
working on that,
Yeah.
you know. So, but the boardwalk is a huge asset. I
Yep.
will continue to say that, not because I have to, but because I enjoy it myself. You know, there's
Yeah.
days when I have a
Unique
like
destination.
I have like an hour in my day. It centers me, you know, just to walk. It's the foliage, the
It's awesome.
sunsets. I talk
It's a
about the
good thing.
sunset all the time. So we're not behind schedule. Like it was completely misinterpreted by the Community Advocate. And I just want to put that out there. You know, I'm sure people will still complain that the money, the roads, I get all that, but that's not the case.
And it
So-
was ARPA money that was
Correct.
used. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which, yes, it is your tax dollars, but it was from the federal
Oh, we were going to
government.
lose it if we didn't
We were
use
going
it.
to lose it, and
Yeah.
it was designed for recreational purposes.
Yep.
When COVID happened, we needed to go outside. We needed recreational things outside.
Right. So,
you're
it was very
not-
specific
It was
how
very
you could
specific, and that's why. And again, kudos to Council Landers at the time for advocating for that for many, many years. And
Yeah.
now that we have it, embrace it, enjoy it.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to use it, no one's forcing you to use it. But I
Right.
will be there. I'm usually in a suit and tie and dress,
Love it.
so I stand out like a sore thumb.
And we'll meet you
But-
at the fix afterwards, right?
Why
and you know what?
not?
Maybe my band will be playing there. That was
Hey.
one thing. We play there at the
Right.
Fix sometimes, and it's so great to see everybody
is.
coming in, dining outside,
Right.
seeing people walk on the board. It's
But there's like
awesome.
prom photos and
Yeah.
wedding
Yeah.
engagements. Like
It's
again,
all
when you're
good.
talking about the community, like it's
That
another
brand that
thing
you were
to-
talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
right? You know?
So, all right. So let's come off the boardwalk. We'll come back
Boardwalk.
towards downtown. There's a
Yeah.
new restaurant. People are
Pico.
buzzing
Yeah,
about
right.
Pico.
I can't wait for that.
We're excited
I
about
need a
Tony.
sneak tour of that. I would love to see inside.
Yeah.
So, but I'm extremely excited. Again, when you talk about revitalizing downtown,
Right.
You have someone who lives in Marlborough who wants to invest in Marlborough.
All
Like
good stuff.
that's incredible. I can't wait
Yeah.
for that. You know.
And is there a big event coming up next
Not
week?
that, not that I
or-
know of.
Get
yes,
your
the-
suit
the-
and tie ready, or
I will be wearing a tuxedo.
okay,
Yeah, I have
all
to
right.
pick
So what are
that
we
up.
talking about here?
Yeah, I am getting all glammed up. So Yes, so the mayor's ball.
All right,
So
there
here
we
we go,
go.
April 12th, and I'm very excited about that. And it's such a great event,
Yeah.
And it's already a charity event, and that money is put into a fund, and the mayor can use that as his discretion to help residents in need. So it's huge.
great.
So we utilize that for community covered, the match program or SNAP program rather that matches for the farmers markets. So residents that need water heaters or things of that nature. So people are
Really
in
great
need.
program.
It's an incredible program.
It's been
So,
around for 65 years.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Which is, Mayor Haddad, I believe, started
right.
that, right?
Yep.
And it's just great. The Humanitarian of the Year. So
Yep.
let's plug that out. So if you know someone who deserves the Humanitarian of the Year, go onto the flashy new website under the
That's right.
mayor's page, and you can nominate someone for the Humanitarian Award. Tickets are
Awesome.
still available.
Yep.
We're selling out quick. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wink, wink. Yeah,
That's right.
We're selling out quick.
Absolutely.
So
we are.
get them sooner than later. I will be there. My partner will be there, which
Great.
is great. He has not been to any events, so it's
We can't
kind of
wait.
exciting. My parents, again, it's just such
a great
event.
community event.
So many wonderful people show up, and it's a lot of laughs, a lot of pictures, and
It'll be fun.
I remember
It'll
our
be a
jazz
great time.
band playing when I was 16 years
Yeah.
old, playing down at
Yep.
it was at Embassy Suites or whatever.
Yep.
Where we hosted.
Yep.
It's a great community.
It's a great event.
Yeah, I've been
And
trying.
to know that money is available to help out real people.
Real people, and I think that's the focus that I really would like
Yep.
to bring to that, because people know about it that go,
Mhm.
but they don't really know the stories behind it.
Yeah.
So to kind of showcase why do we do this?
Why are we doing it?
It's not just a party.
It's a fun party, though.
It is. Oh, absolutely. But their cause,
Yeah,
it
the-
really
the
helps
purpose behind it.
individuals behind it. So I've been trying to go to the gym and get into shape and being vain.
Love it.
But yeah, so April 12th at the
6 to 11.
New England Sports Center. So we're happy to have it there to kind of showcase that. It's a great space, and the community's been working very diligently. So
Yes.
People can
I'm
get
very
tickets.
grateful.
You can buy them
Online
online
or
at the mayor's
Online.
office.
Yeah, the mayor's office online. The link is actually on the website at the
Perfect.
mayor's office, La Shoe.
Yep, La Shoe.
You can get them as well.
Yep.
$50.55 for credit. Correct?
Yeah,
Isn't there a small
online.
fee?
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, so it
So
is
we hope
50,
to
but
see
it's
you all
not-
there. We hope to see you there.
I hope so. A lot of photos will be taking place. So
That's awesome.
practicing my smiling.
Well, Mayor,
But-
thank you.
No,
We
I always
appreciate it.
love
What a
coming
fun
here.
morning.
Yeah, it's a great day to start
Great way
by
to start
being
the
here.
day.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, so
Well,
thank you
hopefully
all
we
for
can bring you
listening.
back for another time. Have
Apparently
you
not
on as-
50. I'm not that great.
You're not
so-
number 50,
Pick your next favorite number. We'll
That's
plug
right.
it in now.
but we'll,
any
if-
any opportunity to come in.
that's awesome.
I-
Well, we
I love
really
being
appreciate
here.
your time this
Yeah.
morning. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
talking about the things that we are excited about that have
Sure.
already happened, the things to look forward to in the city. But it's a great time to be here in the city of Marlborough. So
It
thank you
really
again.
is. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And to all of you watching, thanks for tuning in. And we look forward to joining you for episode 50, not next month, but the month after. So have a great Wednesday, everybody.